Diddle interpretation is the topic of this week's lesson. Why teach diddle interpretation? Well, because this is what makes you play things together. Now, specifically rolls and tap drags and things like that. This is also where the timing skills that hopefully you've mastered at this point come into great play, because we're dealing with different interpretations of rhythms, not just diddles. Diddles are a rhythm. A lot of times I'll use the terms as we do in the drum corps world that are strict or slurred. Now, a lot of times people would refer to that as East Coast or West Coast. East Coast being sort of slurred, like the Bridgemen in the mid-'80s, or West Coast, like the Blue Devils or the Anaheim Kingsmen stick out in my mind, quite honestly, with this too. But we're dealing with rhythms that are more open or more closed. Strict being more closed and slurred being more open. So we'll take a pattern that's 16th note based with a sextuplet at the end, and I'll play that mathematically correct. Now, if I was in the Bridgemen in the mid-'80s, I'd play that something like this. A 16th note based rhythm that was basically all sextuplets. And if I was in a West Coast corps in the similar time, it may sound something like this. Okay, so we're putting basically the diddle further away from the note before it. That's more strict. Putting it closer to it if we're talking about slurred. So let's apply that to just general individual practice. Now, we'll take an 8th note pattern, and if I want to double it or diddle it and make it mathematically correct, which is the interp that I choose to play with as much and teach, mostly because it's the easiest to identify because it's simple math. You're just doubling the note. Take an 8th note pattern and double it, it would then become 16th notes, something like this. That would be mathematically correct. Now, I would have to alter the rhythm a little bit if I wanted to slur that. It would actually become more tripletized. It would be something like this. Okay, so that would be a more slurred interpretation. Now, why do you need to learn this? Well, students in a line need to know what they're doing in order to play clean together, in order to play with the people around them. So I teach these exercises, and a lot of these are in the book. There's actually probably 2 or 3 pages dealing just with diddle interpretation, so a student can memorize what they're doing and counteract what it is. So if their tendency is to sort of slur, let's say tap drags, or right, then they can learn to strict them up or tighten them up, if you will. So a great way to approach that would be to take just a tap drag and put a triplet check on it. This is actually an exercise straight out of the diddle interpretation chapter, and play 16th note interpretation, then triplet interpretation, which would be mathematically correct, 16th note being way over slurred, and then a little more strict, which would be sort of a 32nd note interpretation. So the exercise would be something like this. So you're going from one extreme, which is really slurred, to middle of the road, mathematically correct, and then to over strict.